Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is $3 Theater, and I want to start this off by saying I fully admit that this is a nitpick. It is superficial at best. I get it, but at the same time, I want to kind of use it as a way to draw attention to how things aren't necessarily working as a well-oiled machine in the Lucasfilm story group for Star Wars. And of course, I'm referring to the meeting of Rey and Poe and The Last Jedi. Now, if you remember this scene right here, this is when they meet for the first time on the Millennium Falcon after the Battle of Crate. She says, "Hi, I'm Rey." He says, "I know, my name is Poe." And it's meant to be this kind of cute moment, the two of them coming together for the first time. Except when I saw the movie, I was a little bit confused because I'm like, wouldn't they have met at the end of The Force Awakens? Wouldn't they have actually met when they came back from destroying Starkiller Base? Wouldn't have that been a thing? Right? Like, that feels like that would have been a thing. But apparently, according to Disney, or I should say according to Rian Johnson, the answer to that is no. This is now considered canon. This is when they met for the first time. Never mind the logical fallacy of how it all came together. Right? If she's bringing Finn back and Finn is injured, then Poe would have come back and seen that his buddy is injured and would have met Rey at that same time, setting up this scene, but just before. Well, Disney, I think, understands this, but they're doubling down. Of course, they're doubling down. They want to make sure now that it's 100% canon, and they're doing that in a new comic book. Okay, so keep in mind, this is a new comic book. A couple of early pages came out, and we get this one right here. It follows the events of The Last Jedi. So it takes place on the Millennium Falcon at after the Battle of Crate. And, Poe here says, Rey, if things had gone a little differently, we'd have met a long time ago. Probably been sitting right here a long while back, all four of us, headed to bring that Jedi map to Leia. To which case Rey follows up with, if there's one thing I'm beginning to learn, Poe, it's that you can't dwell on changing the past. Concentrate on the present, work with what you have. Now, this kind of signals a couple things to me. One, the writers are fully aware of the lack of continuity, and they are basically giving kind of the middle finger to those who would nitpick about it. Okay, when she says, concentrate on the present, work with what you got, don't try to dwell on changing the past, because you can't change the past. The past already happened, yada, 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 right? It feels like they are fully aware and acknowledging the situation, but ultimately aren't caring. And when you go back and you look at the Force Awakens novelization, you can actually see that they did meet. And this is what was cut out of the Force Awakens, the movie, but is in the book. Now it says, cheers and spontaneous embraces filled the room with so much joy that no one paid any attention to who was hugging what representative of whichever species. Rey and Poe not excluded. Through their sudden tight clinch of shared excitement led to a moment of mutual awkwardness. Hi, the pilot mumbled. I'm Poe. She nodded slowly, searching his face and finding that she liked it. I recognize the name. So you're Poe Dameron, the X-Wing pilot. I'm Rey. I know, he smiled back, a little more at ease. Nice to meet you. And that's it. That's their meet. That's the meet in the movie. And it's logical for that moment in time. Moving it to the end of The Last Jedi, it really does throw a wrench in continuity and also storytelling. Just like removing and omitting Han's funeral or Leia saying goodbye to Han. That was in the book, but it's not in the movie. That should have been there. I understand they wanted to start the movie in a very dramatic space battle, but you should have led into it a little bit by giving that moment for fans to grieve with the character still alive over the death of Han Solo. It was another missed opportunity. But of course, I could nitpick on that all freaking day, and I probably will at some point in time in the future. But when it comes to Lucasfilm and the writers group and everything else, we did get a little bit of an explanation on this from Pablo Hidalgo a couple months ago, actually, where it was asked, so why do Poe and Rey meet twice? And he says, their meeting was cut from The Force Awakens. It made the novel, but novels end up having abandoned threads like that, which is why when asked if novelizations are canon, I say those are always tricky since they're written before the movie is done by someone who hasn't seen it. Well, that is true. The movie is written before the film is done, but it's based upon the shooting script. It's based upon that. So what they wrote there is technically what you get. In the case of The Last Jedi novelization, they added scenes to the novelization in order to pad out plot holes and pad out other scenes. So why is one considered canon to an extent and the other one is not. It becomes this problem, in my opinion. And the problem essentially boils down to this: a lack of proper oversight. And we've known this for quite some time. When JJ wrote and directed episode 7, he had plotted out episodes 8, episodes 9. The writers group was there as a way to kind of keep in continuity with the films, but they went freaking crazy with dealing with everything else. The writers group wasn't even looking at what he had plotted out. They weren't looking at anything of the sort of what JJ did. The movies and the ancillary content were completely different departments from what I gather. And Rian Johnson was allowed to do what Rian Johnson did, which still is, again, up for some serious debate. And now we're coming into this comic book, and this comic book is kind of, again, doubling down on that, effectively saying that stuff that's in the book is not considered canon, that you shouldn't treat it as canon, and that even though all of these story elements are brought together as a way to kind of interweave throughout, none of it matters. And I know there are people out there that are going to go, it's the book, who cares? Or it's just Star Wars, who cares? It's not so much an issue of what exactly it is, but it's the principle of the matter that I'm harping on here. If you're going to go through all the time and all the effort and all the trouble of crafting this type of world, right? And I'm coming at this from a writer's perspective. If you're going to go through all of this time, all of this energy in order to do this, why not do it right? Why not, make sure that everything is bam, 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 bam. Let there be no room for error. Make sure everything is locked down tight, because that way, no one can complain about these little nitpicky story details that kind of offset the narrative a little bit and that end up distracting fans, who are the ones that are going to go through and buy and read everything. Those are the fans these are being written for. Why not at least take the time to make sure it's all well and good, right? But Hidalgo's saying, or Pablo's saying here that, the book was written before the movie and that scene was cut from the movie. Well, arguably, they came out around the same time. In fact, I think they did come out around the same time. Unlike The Last Jedi novelization, which had scenes added, which is why it didn't come out until 3 months later almost. So what you've got that whole situation going down where there's a number of things here, right? Like it's you could easily cut out that meeting scene from the book, from the final chapter of the book, because if it's not in the movie, then you could just cut it. Right? And no one would know. And then you could save that for later. Had they done that, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. But him trying to explain it away as being, that's like, it was written first. Yeah, but until it goes to print, you can just go deleted and get rid of it and tighten it up a little bit. Make sure things are hunky-dory. Unfortunately, that's not what happens here. Unfortunately, that's not where things are at. And that just goes to show you about the lack of overall leadership and continuity and working together that the film department and the story group have, right? I mean, the story group and the film department should be like this the whole time. They should be working together hand in hand. Anything that J.J. Abrams brings to the table for episode 9, or Rian Johnson with his new trilogy, or the Game of Thrones guys, should immediately go in there and should immediately be taken apart by this writers group and go, okay, here are key plot points. Let's work away into this. Let's do away into this. Let's tie this into this so we can tie it into this later on. How did this happen? Let's tell this story, and then make it a big, full, complete experience. That's not what's happening, and that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because to me, as just a fan, it comes across as being lazy. And I understand I'm probably a little bit pedantic over this. I'm not going to sit there and deny it. But that's one of the biggest problems I've had with criticizing Star Wars in the last couple months is I keep getting frustrated at just the little things that could be easily fixed to make it better. And it almost feels like death by 1,000 cuts. A little one here you don't mind, but when they start mounting up, you start really noticing that there's a lot of problems with the leadership of Star Wars, leadership of Lucasfilm, and they need to fix this. And hopefully they will, if enough people complain. So there's that. However, I want to know your guys' thoughts on this one. Be sure to let me know in the comments below. Do you think this is a big deal, or am I just making a mountain out of a molehill? Does it ultimately matter? Do the books not even really, come into question for you? Again, totally want to get your thoughts and feedback on this. Be sure to comment below if you haven't already. Thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel, check back often for more content from me, and I will talk to you guys later. Have yourself a great day, and peace out.